Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat we read and study the weekly Torah portion called Parashat Shelach Lecha. From our parasha, we start 40 years of wandering in the desert. But if we stop and think about it, we're also on the verge of coming into the Promised Land. The Israelites are already close enough to send out spies and to prepare to conquer the land. It's going to happen in just a few more days. Then occurs the sin of the spies. And in fact, the sin of that generation, the desert generation. And suddenly, we're moving away from the Promised Land for 40 years. We can be so close that we can almost touch it. And at the same time, we're years away. This distance depends on two parameters. The first one is God, His timing. And the second is us, humans, on our level of readiness. I would like to relate this to the body of Messiah and to our level of readiness as believers and as Jews to absorb the Jewish people into the local community and into faith in Yeshua as the Messiah of Israel and as the Messiah of the world. Our parasha begins with sending the 12 spies to the land of Israel. The sin of the spies is one of the most severe sins of the people of Israel during their journey in the desert. In the wake of this terrible sin, all men aged 20 or older who came out of Egypt are to die in the desert, and only the new generation will be allowed to enter the land of Israel. What was the sin that was so terrible that it caused the people of Israel not to enter the Promised Land for 40 years? And how do we avoid repeating the same mistake? The answer is given in the Torah. And they, the spies, spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. The general impression is that the spies said the enemies were too strong. They said bad things about the land. Before we close the story, I want to remind you that the spies acted exactly according to the orders they have received from Moses before they left for the mission. He said, "Go up through the Negev and on into the hill country. See what the land is like and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. And what kind of towns do they live in? Are they unwalled or fortified?" A spy's job is to bring the most accurate information as possible. A spy is expected to focus on the difficulties so the leadership could provide a solution. The job of a spy is to give accurate information regarding the combat abilities of the enemy. The sin was that the spies leaked the bad report to the people, telling them that the land of Canaan, is a land that devours its inhabitants. They instilled fear and panic in the people of Israel, and they, the spies, caused rebellion, an attempt to overthrow the authority. And the people went along with this and actively rebelled. They seek to stone Caleb and Yeshua, and they, the people of Israel, rise up against Moses and Aaron. And then at that moment, the glory of the Lord is seen in the opening of the tabernacle in front of all the people of Israel. Here I think, especially today, it is necessary to preserve the dignity of the state of Israel. It is not our job to bring a bad report about Israel. Today, there are professional organizations like the BDS and others that work hard to give Israel a bad reputation. Our job is to point out the blessings and the good things that Israel has, and there's much to report. Our job is to declare that Israel is blessed, a land flowing with milk and honey. If we return to the days of Moses, we will see a group of slaves who fear or do not understand their purpose, do not understand the future, and are unwilling to enter the Promised Land. And God waited until the old generation was replaced. He waited for a new generation to inherit the Promised Land. If we relate this to the body of Messiah, then we are the desert generation. Our purpose is to make a connection between Yeshua and the people of Israel. The question is, how do we do this? And are we, as a movement, ready? Are we, as Jewish believers, ready to absorb the Jewish people into the local community and in faith in Yeshua as the Messiah? We believe that one day the people of Israel will be saved. How do we see this happen? What is our vision? For nearly 2,000 years, the Gentiles tried on the one hand to destroy and to get rid of us, and on the other hand, to open our eyes to the truth. Let's start with a sword. We begin our history with Christianity in the wake of the Great Rebellion and the destruction of Jerusalem in the year 70. These events caused a separation between Christianity and Judaism. Then, in 1099, we suffered from the Crusades and the massacre of the Jews. In 1348, Jews suffered persecution from the backdrop of the Great Plague. In 1478 was the beginning of the Inquisition. 1492 was the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. In 1648, the massacre of the Jews in the Ukraine begins, along with the history of the pogroms in Europe, until the Holocaust in 1939. This is a brief summary to show that the Gentiles tried to get rid of us and destroy us, but it did not work. Against the impossible, God kept the embers of the Jewish people burning. We lit our Shabbat candles hidden in a closet, and we baked the Pesach matzah in the storeroom or in the cellar below the house. On the other hand, the Gentiles also tried to show us the good and the beautiful. They tried to show us the beauty and love that Christianity has. The idea of born-again Christians. Why do we, the people of Israel, refuse to see and accept the truth? Because throughout history, every Jew who has come to faith in Yeshua has ceased to be part of the Jewish people. He has left the traditions, the customs, the people. He became something else. He lost his Jewish identity. The biggest challenge is identity and the preservation of identity. Our Jewish identity is to be preserved at all costs. When we suffered during the Inquisition in Europe, those who kept the embers burning were the ones who risked their lives and risked their families to keep the traditions and the identity at all costs. When we find the solution to this problem, I believe that the people of Israel will be open to Yeshua. We need to understand, when the Jews kept their identity, it was with an emphasis on tradition, like the separation between meat and milk, the lighting of the Shabbat candles. These commandments are not from the Torah. Therefore, the body of Messiah today does not see the importance of such commandments. But these homes in Europe, which had a sink for milk and a sink for meat, are the ones who kept their Jewish identity and did not assimilate. They were not destroyed. When we manage to develop a strong Messianic Judaism that is unaffected by the foreign winds that blow into the country from different streams of Christianity, when it's clear that we will preserve our Jewish identity at all costs, then we will see the promised land. Therefore, we must invest in developing the next generation. For the next generation is our future. Our generation is the desert generation, the generation that came out of Egypt, came out of the church. However, our mentality, our understanding, our way of thinking still remains in Egypt and is still rooted in the church. The next generation must be the one who will enter and inherit the promised land, assuming that they will be ready. If not, we will wait another generation and another generation until we are ready to absorb and preserve our identity. And if we mess up, like many before us, God will set up others in our place whose job will be to find the solution to the question of the Jewish identity and its preservation forever until Yeshua returns. We need to start with the congregation It cannot look like a Hebrew-speaking foreign church. The way we pray, our worship, the literature has to be local. God entrusted Israel with His book, and our duty to preserve it, to maintain its relevance from generation to generation. We need to understand that assimilation is not an option. God will not allow the people of Israel to assimilate. We are the first example. We must show above all that one can preserve the Jewish identity authentically in Yeshua the Messiah. I know that we briefly touched upon many important subjects that deserve more attention. Please feel free to write us, call us, or even drop by. Shabbat Shalom.